Good morning. It is March 7th. Welcome back to episode 2 of Like It or Leave It. Hope you guys enjoyed episode 1. Glad that you're back for episode 2. And let's get started this morning. So, I was sitting there like most people do, watching NBA on TNT last night. By the way, finally love the fact that it's on Mondays and Thursdays now. So I get my primetime basketball Monday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night, and then the big game on Saturday night. Think that stuff is great. What's not great right now at the moment is this perception of the league. There's this thought that there's two really great teams, or most people, I'll say three. Most people give you the Cavaliers, the Spurs, and the Warriors as their three great teams. And everyone else, more or less, is just some doo-doo at this point. So I want to conflict that line of thinking or add another perspective into it, which is it's not about how good those three teams are or how less you think of the other teams, but it's simply this is what the NBA has always done. The NBA, more so than the NFL, more so than Major League Baseball, and even more so than the National Hockey League, has always been a copycat league. And for very unjust reason, might I add. You had, with its inception, the big man was the most important person in basketball. Take it back to Russell, Chamberlain. Everyone's like, oh, you got to have a big guy. You got to have someone who can throw the ball down to the post and get you easy points. Mr. Charles Barkley's message that he's repeated a million times. Then it went from there to teams tried to get Twin Towers. You had McHale and Parrish in Boston. You had Olajuwon and Sampson in Houston. You had Duncan and Robinson in San Antonio. You know, you see one guy do it. You see someone else tries to recreate it. And that part's fine for the most part. That's what we all do that. You see something that works, you try to do it as well. You go from the Twin Towers to now everybody wants a duo. You want the next Magic Kareem. You want Jordan Pippen. You want Kobe Shaq. Oh, everyone's got to have a duo on their team. Then we go from there to the big three trend. Obviously starting with Boston. The Lakers tried it a couple times, even though they never really got it going with Kobe, Gasol, and they tried Bynum. They tried Ron Artest, now Metta World Peace. And then, obviously, you had LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh in Miami. Then you have now the Warriors, even though the Warriors are more of a big four, but still the same process. And now the current trend that everyone's trying to do is small ball. Everyone's trying to go 4 or 5 shooters on the court and trying to get as many threes up as possible. The reason why the copycat league turns the league into 2 or 3 great teams is because not everyone can do this. Just because one guy or one set group of guys can make this style work does not mean that it's an effective style you can copy and duplicate among 30 teams in the league. My example, you're not going to have, if you're trying to create Twin Towers, you're not going to have Duncan and Robinson. You're not going to have McHale and Parrish. If you're trying to make a great duo, you're not going to have Kobe and Shaq. You're not going to have Jordan and Pippen. It's just not going to happen. That's why those guys are iconic. That's why those guys have staying power. When you have these big threes teams try to make, you know, you're not always going to have LeBron James, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh at the height of their careers. You're not going to have Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen, which was more of a mental fit more so than a physical fit. But they made it work and they got a title. With small ball, you're not going to have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Those are two of the best shooters ever and one of the most versatile players ever. You're not going to have a James Harden and all those three-point shooters in Houston. Like, everyone's making this case that Cleveland's adjusting their roster to play Golden State. They're going small. Well, yeah, you can do that kind of thing when LeBron James is on your team. You can do that kind of thing, like I said, when you have Steph Curry and you have Klay Thompson on your team, when you have James Harden running point guard for you. I'm looking at a team right now. You can't do that if you're Drew Holiday. Did not work for the Pelicans going small. So what did they do? Acquire DeMarcus Cousins, and they're like, we're going to try to play to this strength, that we're going to have the most size, and we're going to use that as our way to win. The systems and this whole copycat mentality is just completely overrated. Great players are great no matter what the system. Michael Jordan was going to be great whether he played small ball, whether he played in the 60s, or how he played in the 80s and 90s. We all love to think that, Greg Popovich's system is what's made him great over 20 years. Well, yeah, but so did Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. Phil Jackson's system, the triangle, is so revered. Well, yeah, so is Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kobe Bryant, and Shaquille O'Neal. You've got to stop in the NBA trying to just copy what has worked and simply do what works for your players. In football, you can get away with it a little bit more. You've got 22 guys that you've got to work with. You can systematically figure out a way to take someone out of a game or put someone into a game in football. Whereas basketball is the one sport where one star can flat out dominate the game for a minute, from tip-off all the way to the end of the game. If your roster does not have three-point shooters, you don't play small ball. If your roster does not have 7-footers, you do not play big. If your roster has those things, go for it. Play to the strengths of your roster. We need to cut this copycat stuff out. It's just not working. And that's why we're seeing such a lower performance from so many of these teams, because they want to play like Golden State. They want to play like Cleveland. And they're not. You don't have LeBron James. I'm sorry. You don't have Stephen Curry. I'm sorry. There's a lot of people nowadays that are, and especially radio people on ESPN, people just talking heads on TV that are giving wide receivers a lot of hate. I mean, they are just getting a lot of hate. They're saying overrated, you don't need them, not that important. They're getting the diva tags, which they always have, and most of them are. Joe Horn pulled the phone and out of a goalpost and called someone. Randy Moss Moon fans, not trying to give them a pass on what they've done, but look at it simply from an on the field perspective. I'm gonna tell you why wide receiver is probably the third most important position in football in my book. People have this importance that they put. Quarterback's most important position. All right, I'll give you that one. That's number one. Then it generally has been going quarterback, offensive line, a good pass rusher, or a corner. Well, let me tell you what I would take. My list is quarterback, good pass rusher, and then wide receivers third. With all the normal criticism that they get is that they're dependent on other guys. You can make them system guys. Oh, the Patriots have never had a star wide receiver. Oh, look what Manning did with all his guys, even beyond Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. It's everybody else makes them. Well, look at what they do on the field. Look what they do for everybody else. There is no greater advantage in football than the double team. A guy who requires two people to guard him turns the game from 12 on 12 to 11 on 10. I'm going to list off a couple guys here for you. Tell me what you think of these guys. Jerry Rice, Reggie White, Randy Moss, J.J. Watt, Lawrence Taylor, Calvin Johnson, Bruce Smith. Pretty good names, all except 3 currently in the Hall of Fame. The other 3 are well on their way. I heard an article that Calvin Johnson wasn't a Hall of Famer, and I just kind of laughed, but that's a story for another day. J.J. Watt is the best player in football right now because he demands, whether he gets a tackle, whether he gets a sack, whether he hits anyone on that play, he demands that he be guarded by 2 people on every single play. 2 offensive linemen have to block J.J. Watt. The game has now become 11 on 10, and you automatically have an advantage. When Julio Jones is on the outside, he could have 0 catches for 0 yards, 0 touchdowns, zeros all across the board. You played the game 11 on 10. I saw the other day, it was Julio Jones' stats and all the Falcons' 40-point games, and really the only 40-point game he had a huge factor on was the Carolina game where they scored 43 points. He had the 12 catches for 300 yards. Well, the other games he had was like 1 catch, 2 catches, and I believe 4 catches. And with that, do they not realize the reason all these other guys are getting open? That the reason that all of these other guys are getting their stats and their numbers is because there's one less guy on the other side of the field, because that's the kind of attention, that's the kind of respect that Julio Jones demands on a day-to-day, on a play-to-play basis. People are hating on wide receivers, and you want to hate on them for being a diva, fine. But don't hate on them for what they do on the field. They are absolutely the 3rd most important position you have. They are absolutely vital. And if you think they're not, well, look at what the Colts did for the last 3 years. They kept looking for another new number 1 wide receiver. Finally got T.Y. Hilton. Notice how their numbers went up. Notice how the other guys got better. Andrew Luck's been there for 7 years. Guys weren't doing that the first couple. I'm just saying. Final thing I want to talk about, and I'm not here just to be controversial. I'm not here to make any political stance. I'm not here to make any social stance. But gosh damn it, something pissed me the fuck off yesterday. Not even yesterday, it was this weekend. Colin Kaepernick said he was going to stand next year for the national anthem. Let me start by clarifying what I'm about to say about Kaepernick does not affect how I feel and does not change what he stood or what he sat for in the beginning. What he did, or what I'm about to say about him, is different than what he stood for. They are 2 different entities. This is simply about him. If you are going to make a stance, you are going to take a position on something like that, and you are going to do it in the way that you would, all power to you. We live in America. You get to do that kind of thing. It's what people do. We protest. That's in our history. It's fine. when you have a contract, you've got guaranteed money, you've got a backup who's you're really not scared of, it's much easier to take those kind of stances. When now that you need a job, you need to play nice with everybody, now you're going to take the, hey, everyone likes this more, so I'm going to do it. My issue with this is if you're going to try to be a social warrior, it's not social warrior until it gets hard and then I stop. It's not social warrior until, oh, now I need money. Oh, now I'm going to stop because people aren't going to like this. You knew people weren't going to like you when you did it in the first place. But when you had guaranteed money, when you had a guaranteed contract, you were fine with it. And now all of a sudden, you're changing up your stance. Once again, this has everything to do with Kaepernick. It has nothing to do for what he stood for. What he stood for was fine. But between him coming out and saying, I did not vote in the past election, from him coming out and saying now he is going to stand, I don't want to hear a single thing from Colin Kaepernick. And if he's out of the league next year, I think it's better for it. If you're so much more concerned about being a social warrior than a football player, if you don't bring your politics to work no matter what business you're in. And if you're so concerned about that, though, then you keep that stance. You don't just change once it gets hard. Martin Luther King wasn't allowed to just be like, oh, well, nah, I need to go back to work tomorrow, and people aren't going to really want to hire me if I change my stance on it, or because of my stance on this situation. As far as I'm concerned, Colin Kaepernick is a hypocrite. As far as I'm concerned, he is a joke and should not be taken serious. Like I said, you separate him from what he stood for. They are two different things. The reasoning is fine. The actions taken are not. That is my last thing for this morning. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow, same time. Love you guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment. If you got something you want to hear me talk about, please, I read the comments. Let me know, and I will see you guys tomorrow.